and welcome to another great edition of The Lap Down. I am your host, Greg Farmer, and with me tonight is Eli, Ryan, and JP. How are we doing tonight, fellas?
Fantastic.
Doing great.
Awesome, awesome. Uh, before we get started, as always, a huge shout out to Will and the Alkali Project for the intro and outro music on the show. Will was on the show last week, told us he released some new music last week. So y'all be sure to go check that out wherever you get your music. But with that being said, we are going to dive right in because we have some breaking news hot off the press. Um, Earlier today, the Wednesday edition or the guest edition of the Dale Jr. Download dropped, and he had NASCAR CEO Steve O'Donnell on the show. And Steve went on record to say that in 2026, NASCAR will be increasing the horsepower on the Cup cars on tracks under a mile and a half and the road courses. So Watkins Glen, Sonoma, um, Charlotte Roval. I would guess the San Diego Street Course next year, Bristol, Richmond, Martinsville, etc. All the short tracks, we will be getting 750 horsepower.
Also, Darlington, New Hampshire, and Gateway are some other notables in that under a mile and a half category.
Right. That is
Because they don't
true.
normally get included in the short track party, but they definitely race like it.
Oh, yeah. But um, I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on this. Now, Goodyear has been pretty good about bringing a tire to certain tracks this year that wears quite a bit. Um, and, we've all been screaming for more horsepower. Now, I know this is not what we want to see per se. We want to see increased horsepower on all tracks, but I do believe that this might be a step in the right direction. And um, do you guys think, starting with Ryan, if this might improve racing on those certain tracks next year?
I definitely think there's a chance because more horsepower also means to more throttle ability, more ability to potentially play with not being 100% wide open on the throttle through certain corners. So you might be able to see some guys carry a little bit more use that horsepower to carry more speed into or off of certain corners at the road courses. But I actually like the idea to not touch the 1.5 milers at the moment because they've been racing very well with the next gen car. And it's kind of the whole thing of if it isn't broke, don't fix it. And obviously, ideally, we'd like to see the cars be very similar, if not the same, across all the tracks. But obviously, short tracks and road courses are what need fixing right now. So making this change exclusive to those track types, I think, is way better than trying to make it a sweeping change and potentially ruin what you have at the intermediates currently. So, although that will probably end up leading to a lot more SVG dominance at the road courses, considering more mistakes will lead to bigger gaps between the drivers.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, definitely. Eli, what about you?
I think 750 is a really good start. I've preached it for the past 2 years. Making any change is better than no change. It's gotten to a point to where you can't really ignore this issue anymore. And this should have been done last year. This has just been kicked down the road too long. But I think 750 is a great start. Aerodynamically, do I think it'll fix the car? No. I mean, this car is very flawed in a lot of ways at short tracks. But I think, like Ryan said, more throttle capabilities. I see that being a pro. I really do like that they're not touching the intermediates though, because you don't want to ruin that. I mean, that's kind of where this next gen car shines. It's been great at intermediates, so I really like not touching that. But no, I think overall 750 is a great start. I would like to see more. I would like to see 900, but that's that's a stretch. But no, I think this is a great start overall.
All right. JP, what about you?
I honestly think it is a hit the gas start for NASCAR, and I'm very pleased that they made this decision.
All right. Now, I will say, um, I saw people celebrating it on social media, and I also saw people bashing it. Obviously, we've said on here before, you're never ever going to please a race fan, no matter what. But I did see a rumor. I can't remember the source right off the top of my head, but um, there was a rumor circulating right after this news broke that they could potentially go to 900 horsepower across all tracks in 2027 after Dodge comes back to the Cup Series, because we all know that Dodge is coming back and probably most likely to the Cup Series in 2027. So I'm wondering, they make this change for 2026, maybe to see how it goes, and then we get a new slash returning manufacturer in 2027, which is what we've all been clamoring for, and we get a little bit more horsepower. Maybe NASCAR listens to the fans and makes some aerodynamic changes to the Cup car in 2026, and we go from there. What do you think, Brian?
Well, one thing about, yeah, because I keep hearing people say aerodynamic changes in regards to short tracks. I don't know how much. Well, yeah, I don't know how much you can actually change aerodynamics at a short track because of just the overall low speed of, like, specifically when I see people talking about Martinsville. Like, yeah, Bristol, there's definitely aerodynamic impact from the bodywork of the car that definitely can be played around with to try and help fix Bristol specifically. But when you get to, like, the Martinsvilles, even to some degree like the Richmonds of the world, it's like, okay, your speeds are a lot lower to the point where aerodynamics, yeah, don't play anywhere near as big a factor as horsepower and grip. And obviously, that being the thing with the new wider tires that we have, they produce so much grip. And really, I don't know what the easy solution is there. And that's kind of, I think, the rut NASCAR's been in with this new car, is trying to figure out how to fix that grip problem. But one thing Eli did mention, with the going back to or with the hope of maybe eventually returning to 900 horsepower, actually goes back to something I mentioned when, I'm talking with my dad about, about the TV rating problem. And it's like, well, I think the big thing NASCAR would need to fix, at least from my perspective, is making the cars truly spectacular again, which I feel like they had kind of lost over the last decade or so. Yeah, the car's not feeling anywhere near as spectacular. I mean, they're still fast, but yeah, the sheer just kind of spectacular of the whole show definitely had kind of fallen off a bit. And whether that's the TV companies not highlighting those components, or if they just flat out aren't there, either way, that's not getting to the casual fans. So hopefully 900 horse. If we can get 900 horsepower back, I'd like to see that, because I think that would be a step towards making these cars truly spectacular again, no matter how bad the coverage is. Looking at you, Fox.
Yeah. Um, Before we move on, I mean, you guys can probably go listen to this in full if you listen to the Dale Jr. download. But some more notes about what Steve O'Donnell said, and it kind of parlays into a few things that we've talked about over the last couple of weeks. Um, Steve O'Donnell commented on the playoff format too. He said nothing will be announced before the end of the season as far as any playoff changes for next year. Um, he thinks that the current playoff system hurts star power, which is what we've been saying for a couple of years now.
Yep.
He doesn't like that people talk about the playoffs when someone wins the Daytona 500.
Yep.
Winning the Daytona 500 is a big thing, but it gets overshadowed by, oh, that driver just made the playoffs.
Stenhouse, McDowell, Cindric.
Exactly. Doesn't like that people talk, or NASCAR needs the drivers to buy into whatever the format may be, and says that NASCAR can't have a format in place that brings in new fans at the expense of existing fans. So it kind of sounds like to me like they're going to kind of like back to the drawing board on everything, back to the basics, if you will. And Bob Pockris said this about the horsepower thing. O'Donnell said that going to more than 750 horsepower would be a significant cost. It isn't that it's the tapered spacer issue, that's how they're increasing horsepower. They're basically reducing the size of the tapered spacer in the motors.
Yep.
But the cost, it comes with the engine rules of they have to use the same engine in at least 2 races per season, which leads to durability issues and etc. But honestly, I'm happy that they're making a change. It may not be the full change that we want, but it's like I said a minute ago, it's a start. But we are going to move on and hope to see what happens from there.
Real quick, I
Um,
wanted to say something about that, about the playoff announcement or
Sure.
lack thereof.
Sure.
It makes sense that they what Steve O'Donnell said about not announcing a change to the playoffs in the middle of your playoffs, because you don't want to announce that, hey, this format is completely illegitimate and won't be a thing next year amidst a championship battle using that current format. So, I mean, that makes total sense why you don't go and change, why you won't announce the change to the format until after this season is over. Because could you imagine the championship 4 battle at Phoenix, and then the conversation is, well, announced earlier this week, there will not be a Final 4 race next year.
Yeah. But moving on from what we are talking about, a little bit more breaking news. Harrison Burton will part ways with AM Racing at season's end. And this announcement comes right after he made the playoffs with the team, giving them their first ever playoffs appearance. In your guys' opinions, starting with Ryan, do you think this is a bad move? And where do you think Harrison ends up in 2026?
I hope Harrison ends up somewhere. I mean, I haven't looked at the Xfinity and Truck Series kind of free agency. Usually we start looking at that once the season actually wraps up. But I would hope that Harrison Burton has earned himself a promotion now. Maybe it's a contending level Truck Series ride, which would be technically a demotion from Xfinity. But I mean, he just turned what was at the midway point last year the dead last NASCAR Xfinity Series team in owners points when they had Haley Deegan and ultimately parted ways with her mid-season. They were dead last in owners points, and he just took that team in little under 18 months from that point to the playoffs. I mean, I think that is more than deserving of a promotion there for Harrison Burton. I do find it kind of odd that AM Racing would be the ones initiating the parting of ways here, which is what it sounds like.
Yeah. I missed the first part of what you said. Do you have an opinion on where you think he might end up next year?
I said I hadn't really looked into the Truck and Xfinity Series free agency, as I feel like we look at that once the seasons actually conclude. But that I would hope that he gets a promotion in some way, whether that's a contending level truck ride, which would technically be a demotion. But I also just don't know what Xfinity seats that are actually good would be available, because a lot like the junior motorsports team I think is going to look very similar to last year outside of the previously announced that Quapple and Zilich will be sharing a car next year. Like the Junior Motorsports cars sound like they're all booked up. Joe Gibbs Racing already has a dense pipeline for their cars, so it's like, okay, I don't know exactly where he could go that he would be able to find a competitive ride in Xfinity. So I think a contending truck might be the answer.
Yeah. Eli, what about you, bud?
Yeah, that's a good question. To me, it doesn't make sense to let go of Harrison in the fashion they're doing it in. It makes you almost ask the question of what kind of internal conflicts are going on between there, because like Ryan said, it really does sound like they are initiating the process. As far as where he would go, I don't know. I really don't. I would like to say that it's possible that he could find a ride, but I haven't sat down and really looked at the free agency. But for them to initiate that process, the math isn't math in there at all. So, um, yeah, I don't know.
Actually, I just thought about something. Has Colleague announced who their drivers in their truck program are going to be? Because could he potentially be one of the flagship drivers for Dodge?
The only one that I know of that was rumored would be Cletus McFarland, but that's it.
Yeah, that was just a rumor, which I haven't heard any substantial movement on that. So,
Yeah, it's just
all right, but yeah,
an
that was
odd
just kind of a team
situation.
I thought about that has a lot of
But
trucks and would theoretically be a contending truck team.
well, while we're on the subject of the truck team for uh the new truck team for the before mentioned
Colleague.
colleague racing this weekend. uh, Um, I I heard that Brandon Bugabin King might be going to that colleague, like might.
Well, there are 5 seats of that team to fill, so I mean, it's possible that he could go there, Harrison Burton could go there, and they still have 3 trucks to be named later.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Butterbean and Cletus McFarland would take up 2. There's still 3 spots open, so Harrison could still land a seat there.
Yeah. Well, and looking at the potential for moving forward, I mean, I think that new Dodge pipeline, looking at the colleague racing system, I think it wouldn't be a far cry to imagine how Harrison Burton could establish himself as one of the, if not the best driver in that pipeline. Because at some point, AJ Allmendinger will end up retiring from full time racing at the Cup level. That'll open up a seat. And really, I don't think there's a clear cut favorite to take that seat when and if that does happen. And who even, I can't, oh yeah, Ty Dillon's in the other seat. So, I mean, and I don't think Ty Dillon's a lock to keep that seat long term either if Dodge is bringing in a ton of money and can potentially kind of look for their driver of the future. Again, I think there's a real chance that Burton could establish himself as that driver of the future.
Yeah. I mean, he's got good talent. He just needs to be like in better equipment, in my opinion. Like he was pretty damn good when he was at Joe Gibbs in the Xfinity Series driving the 20 car, and then correct me if I'm wrong, but he moved up to the 21, right?
Yep.
Or
Yeah, he
Yeah.
went to the Wood Brothers 21 car.
yeah, and kind of did subpar minus his win at Daytona last year, and then went back down to the Xfinity Series for AM and is now in the playoffs. So obviously the kid has talent. He just needs to be in better equipment.
Was in the playoffs.
What? Oh, he's eliminated. Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. I was looking at
Yeah.
the freaking playoff standings earlier too, and I didn't think to. Yeah. Oh, he was in the playoffs, but they were still in the playoffs. So the worst he's going to finish in the points is 12th.
Yeah. I mean, it's still an amazing performance from him.
Right, which is again, like we've talked about, a huge monetary boost for that team.
Yep. So who do you think AM Racing goes and gets? Because I think that's the other question: is if you're letting go of a driver with that kind of talent, I imagine you're not doing that unless you have a name in mind who is going to be taking that seat. And I don't really know who the obvious candidate is there. I mean, that's a Ford ride, so Majeski?
Nope. Maybe, or I mean, Tyler was talking about it a few weeks ago. There was rumors that Haley Deegan could be coming back to NASCAR next year.
Okay, after how bad Haley Deegan did in that exact ride 1 year ago, I'm not sure that would be the team that I think would be giving the first look. I would love to see Haley Deegan get another shot. I'm just not sure that going back to the exact same team that she floundered with 1 year ago is the right move for either the team or her.
Or Tricon is Ford in the Xfinity or the Truck Series, right?
Tricon's Toyota.
Tricon is Toyota. That's right. Thorsport is Ford. That's right. So
and that's where
if you're thinking of the Ford pipeline, Majeski would be the only option.
Yeah, because Ford really does not have a very deep pipeline. I mean, that Xfinity Series program, especially with the fact that Haas is switching to Chevy next year, you literally have AM Racing, the Ryan Sieg cars, and not much else at the Xfinity Series level. So that's like 3-4 vehicles at most for Ford.
Yeah.
In Xfinity. Obviously, Thorsport gives them a lot more in trucks, but yeah, I mean, it's a very thin pipeline for Ford.
Yep. All right. Well, we're going to move on. We're going to go into our recap segment. And the recap segment is sponsored by Circle B Diecast. Hey, race fans, do you need a new diecast? Are you looking to add to your diecast collection? Well, check out none other than Circle B Diecast. They have great deals, pre-orders available for race wins. Go check out their website, circlebdiecast.com, and be sure to use promo code LAPDOWN at checkout for $5 off. Now, for the recap, it was a triple header weekend at the Charlotte Roval. Trucks, Xfinity, and Cup raced. And it was Heim time again at the Charlotte Roval. Corey Heim spins on the first, or got spun on the first lap in turn one, and then came back to win the race and earn his 10th win of the season. At some point, you got to think he is the championship favorite at this point, right? Starting with Ryan.
Oh, yep. Yeah, I mean, I think Corey Heim is far and away the favorite, assuming that no shenanigans happen at Phoenix, which he's not been immune to shenanigans in the past, getting tangled with Hocevar, not to mention Toyota's short track prowess in the truck series has not been at the top of its game. So it's one race, any given, I guess in this case, any given Friday, anything could happen. But yeah, you'd be hard pressed to try and find too many people picking anyone other than Heim for that championship.
Yep. And there's only been, I think there was a stat that came out the other day that said there's only been a handful of drivers that have won 10 races in a single season across all the series, and we had two of them this past weekend. But Eli, what are your thoughts on the on Corey Heim?
Corey Haim's impressive to me. It's very rare to see that kind of dominance out of somebody. Now, granted, it's not the field's not like it was back 10 years ago in the Truck Series, but it's still impressive. And it will go down in the history books, and people won't forget this season for these two guys, but especially Heim. Um, However, I've got a really weird feeling that either Heim or Zilich are going to get screwed out of a championship in the most absurd way because of this format. We'll see, but either way, it's impressive, and they both of those guys. I know we're focusing on Heim, but both of them deserve the credit they've got.
Absolutely. Now, it's funny that you say that because of this format. If we were doing full season points, Corey Heim and Connor Zilish would have locked up the championship probably 2 or 3 races ago. But
Yeah, probably.
JP, what are your thoughts on it?
So I, I think it's totally amazing. We have Talladega, Martinsville. We have Talladega, Martinsville, and Phoenix left. How many wins do you think he can get out of all those races?
Well, Talladega is always a wild card. Um, I mean, it wouldn't shock me at all if he won Martinsville and Phoenix. So he could easily get 2 more wins on the season at least.
Yeah. Well, I think he'll win all 3 races. And let me tell you why. That kid is talented. And he needs to find a couple. I don't care if it's 2311 Racing or whoever cup teams. If you're listening to this podcast, hear me out. Corey Hine needs to be behind the wheel in 2027 or even next year in 2026 in Cup.
Well, I will add on to that. Now, this isn't confirmed. This is just a rumor. But I was listening to Door Bumper Clear yesterday, and Freddie Kraft may or may not have spilled the beans that Corey Heim has a cup ride secured for 2026. We don't know where. He did not say where, but it is rumored that Heim does have a ride secured for 2026. So your wishes may be answered, JP. But turning to Saturday, the Xfinity Series, we talked about 10-win seasons. Connor Zilich got his 10th win of the season, which, again, no shocker there. But the big story coming out of the Xfinity Series was that it was a cutoff race, and Austin Hill was eliminated from the playoffs by 21 points, which is the exact number of points that he lost after his suspension for intentionally wrecking Eric Almirola at Indianapolis earlier in the season. So, starting with Ryan, do you think Austin Hill maybe looks at this and has some sort of a quote turning point in his career?
Uh, Hard telling, not knowing. I mean, we'll have to wait until next year to see if he races overly differently compared to obviously the driving that got him that suspension in the first place. But I will say, hearing his quotes after the race, I think it was the first time I've heard him not flatly deny that, hey, that wreck on Amarola was unintentional. Because every other time I've heard him talk about it, he still claims that he was not trying to wreck Amarola. And in his post race thing after Charlotte, he didn't say directly that. Yeah, he didn't like bring up the fact that it was an accident. He kind of just left it open. So I'm starting to wonder if maybe he's finally admitting that, yeah, I did that intentionally, and maybe that's admitting the mistake is the first step to actually correcting the behavior. Because you have to admit there's a problem before we can really expect change.
Yep.
Because
It's like a quote that I heard on a TV show one time. The first step to recognizing a problem is realizing that there is one.
yeah, I mean, you can't start to fix a problem if you're still in denial that there is a problem. It's kind of like NASCAR with the next gen car. You can't start to fix it until you acknowledge that it's not perfect.
Yep. Eli, what about you?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. My AirPods weren't wanting me to talk. No, I don't think he'll fix anything. He got suspended at Indy and then came back at Watkins Glen and just raced like a buffoon. I mean, no, it's Austin Hill. I don't think anything's going to change. I think that attitude stays there. I think that ego stays there, and I think that's what holds him out of a cup ride ultimately. I preach this a lot actually on a daily basis. Um, it's one thing to mess something up and fix it, but it's a completely different thing to mess something up and fix it, but realize just the realization of everything that you messed it up in the first place. And that was the mistake to start everything. And when you can't even own up to your mistakes, admit when you're wrong, no. I don't think he'll change. I don't think this is a turning point. I don't think it's anything. I think this is Austin Hill and people are going to have to accept this is Austin Hill, unfortunately. And it's just going to be that way. So, no, I don't think he'll change. I hope he changes. I really do. But then again, I mean, how long have we been dealing with this now?
I mean, you are right on that. Um, you say it's holding him out of a cup, right? He's made a few cup starts, but nothing full time. Um, if he wants, like you said, if he wants a cup ride, he's gonna have to clean it up. And right now, the only available team that would maybe even let him race would be RCR, and you would need either Kyle Busch or Austin Dillon to hang it up at some point in order for him to get one of those rides.
He can take Kyle Busch's car for this weekend for all I care. If it gets us out of this contract, go ahead. Be my guest, Austin Hill.
But just chiming in real quick though, because obviously you mentioned the Watkins Glen crash where he just drove like an idiot again. I feel like the difference now is that he's actually seen the consequences of his own actions. Because after that 1 week suspension, he was still in the playoffs and hadn't actually. I don't think he quite had realized the consequences of his own actions. Again, I'm not saying that it will lead to a change, but I'm hopeful that maybe there's at least some difference to the situation now versus what it was back at Watkins Glen when he really hadn't had any consequences of his own actions.
You mean like when he wrecked half the field coming off of turn 7?
Yeah, that's the Watkins Glen crash, right?
Yeah,
Or
when he hooked. Well, I mean, I don't think that one was intentional, but he did hook McDowell, and that
yeah,
started all that whole
trust
thing.
me, I am well aware he hooked McDowell.
Time will
But
tell.
again, my point being is that at that point, yeah, he'd had to sit out a race, but really hadn't suffered any real consequences of his own actions. Probably still had belief in himself that, hey, I'll be able to drive my way out of the first round of the playoffs. Yeah, in spite of the penalty. Then now he's actually realized some of the consequences of his own actions, actually suffering an actual elimination from the championship.
Yeah.
Again, it's not a guarantee that it'll change anything, and I'm not even expecting it to, but that is at least something to consider.
Yep. JP, what about you?
All right. So I've been quiet, waiting for my turn. Here goes. Um, I really think that what was the question again? So I make
Austin Hill eliminated from the playoffs after by 21 points after losing his
oh
21
yeah.
playoffs points. Do you think it might be like a turning point in his career, like he's realizing everything that he did wrong?
Yes. And I I know someone within Whitaker is racing, uh, but I I think yes, he's going to learn from this and be better. I'm hoping he does learn because he is a talented racer when he races correctly. Turning Eric Amarillo earlier this year was not racing correctly. That was racing with his head cut off. Sorry, Austin, but
Oh,
we all know.
that might be the understatement of the year. But moving on to Sunday, shock and surprise, Shane Van Gisbergen wins his 5th race of the season and also his 5th road course in a row. The only one that he did not win this year was Coda, which was won by Christopher Bell.
Yep.
We all kind of, he was the odds-on favorite to win the race. So everybody kind of saw it coming. But the big
Did everybody see it coming?
Well, I mean, Bell and Larson did kind of give him a run for his money at points during the race, but at the end, he did win by 15 seconds.
Yeah.
But the big story coming out of the Roval was, again, it was a cutoff race for the Cup Series, and the final spot in the round of 8 came down to Joey Logano and Ross Chastain. And Logano barely made it after Ross Chastain decided to do Ross Chastain things and go full on send into the final chicane on the last lap. Ends up taking out Denny Hamlin. And then both him and Hamlin did their best Talladega Nights impression by going full reverse across the finish line. Which I've said it time and time again. I don't like the Roval. I wish they would go back to the oval in the fall. And then every time I say that, something happens at the Roval to make it entertaining every single time. Like, you can ask my wife. We were sitting here watching it, and I was like on the edge of my seat, and I was like, okay, what's going to happen? I said, Ross is going to have to do something. And then he goes full send, and I about jumped up off the couch. I was like, holy crap, this is like Jimmy Johnson, Martin Truex Jr. all over again. But the whole segment created yet another memorable moment in Ross's career. We got the Hail Melon. Now you got what DBC called it, the Hail Roval.
The Fail Melon.
The Fail Melon, yes. So one of my questions to you guys, he won the Coke 600 earlier this year, but he seems to be known more this year and last year, or in recent years, for his highlight reels versus his race wins. Um, Starting with Ryan, do you think Ross is more of a highlight reel than a race winning contender nowadays?
I mean, hard to really say because I mean he's the best oval driver on that team. I mean, yeah, obviously when you get to the road courses, SVG is clear cut the standout driver. But when it comes to the ovals, I mean, Chastain is far and away the best driver on that team, and it leads to the question of okay, is there anything more that Chastain could be getting out of these cars in terms of race winning potential, or is he getting the most out of the equipment and the equipment just isn't quite up to snuff? Because, like, yeah, Trackhouse is a tier one team, but like, is it really the same? Is it really the same caliber of stuff that Hendrick is racing with? I would rather doubt it. And I'd be kind of curious to see if you did swap Chastain and Larson, or Chastain and Byron, or whichever successful driver you wanted to put kind of more regular contender for race wins into that exact seat and see if they would actually get any more success out of it. I don't know.
Yeah. You actually asked a good question just now. Is he getting like the most out of the cars? If you think back to his days in the Xfinity series when he was driving for JD Motorsports, an unsponsored car, it was just a plain red car with a yellow number on the side going around the track. He was getting top 15s in what should have been a 25th place car.
Yep.
So, like, he was definitely getting more out of those cars than what they should have been getting.
Well, and that's why I'm kind of curious because if you look at him, like, just compare him to the other NASCAR driver in that on that team, because we'll discount SVG because it's rookie season, first time racing ovals. I think you can take a lot of SVG's stuff with a major grain of salt this season. But look at him compared to Daniel Suarez in the same equipment. I mean, he has been light years ahead of Daniel Suarez the entire season, which makes me lean towards the side of, yeah, I think Chastain is probably getting as much, if not more, out of his car than he should be able to.
Yep. And I know I didn't note it, but we were talking. I said, Ross Chastain and Denny Hamlin finished the race in reverse. There was also a third car that
Hey,
did that.
Jay!
Yep. You were talking about Daniel Suarez. He cooked it going into the final chicane and
Oh,
spun.
is that what happened? Still haven't even seen a replay that actually showed.
I
I'm
believe
still waiting on NBC to show the replay as to what happened to AJ Allmendinger
Yeah, there was an
4 days later.
onboard from either AJ or Daniel's car that showed the contact, and AJ did spin coming out of the final chicane and ended up finishing the race in reverse. And so they said on, I think it was the teardown or DBC, that it was the first time in Cup Series history that three cars finished the race in reverse.
Yep.
But
Well, as I said, I'm gonna say it's now 3 days later, and I'm still waiting on NBC to show the replay.
Eli, what are your thoughts on Ross Chastain?
I'll touch on a few different points here, but I'll start with Ross. I'll make him brief. Um, it's hard to not look at Ross's highlight reel versus his actual race wins because the man's going around the wall at Martinsville, or he's cutting a road course, doing something nobody other than Ross would think of, or doing stuff like this. I mean, it's so hard to not. Like, I would much rather, I saw it in person. I would much rather watch him fly around the wall at Martinsville than I would watching him cross the line for the Coke 600. So yeah, I mean, that is a valid point. And to Ross's, I mean, perspective, that would be a great question to ask him. Um, in a way, it's, to accomplish something, I guess his biggest accomplishment, race win go, is the Coke 600. So I wonder how he feels about that. Does Is that disrespectful to him? Does he want people to focus on his personality and the way he drives doing stuff like this, or does he want people to focus on, his actual, like, real accomplishments, things that will go down in the history books as trophies? So that's a really intriguing question. And to touch on one other point you had brought up about the Roval wanting to go back to the Oval, and how every time you say it, something happens. I'm right there with you. But I'll say this: if we did not have this playoff format, if it was just normal format, whoever has the most points wins. If we were in the Roval same time of year, this race would suck. This format forces drivers to do stupid stuff like this. It's stupid. That's what it is. I mean, it's stupid at the end of the day. It's not racing. It's entertaining. It's entertainment, but it's not racing. This format forces drivers to do stuff like this, and you can't fault them. You can't. I mean, that's their job. Their job is to advance and win a championship. But that's what this format has brought upon the sport, and it really sucks in a way. So that's all I really have to say about that. But that is a really good question about Ross. I will give you that.
No, you can't really fault the drivers for doing the kind of stuff that they do, for the playoffs, because of the format. Like you touched on it, the wall ride, he needed 2 spots and ended up gaining like 6 spots. And, he tried everything that he could um on Sunday to maintain at least that 1 point advantage, because even if they were tied coming to the line, Logano would have had the tiebreaker because of the the average finish position in that round. Um, this is like I'm kind of lost here, or not lost, but like a loss for words, because like I like this playoff system, but I don't like the eliminations and what it forces the drivers to do, because like you said, Eli, you get stupid stuff like this, and you know they go to Vegas this week. um Whoever wins that, if it's a playoffs driver, they get 2 weeks to prepare for Phoenix, and then you got Talladega next week, so you're probably going to have some stupid chaos at Talladega. And then you've got Martinsville, which we saw what happened at Martinsville last year with the manipulation with the Chevy drivers. Like it's just ridiculous.
Well,
But
go ahead and finish that thought. I do have a question
no,
for you.
you're good. You're good.
Let me ask you this. Do you like it as far as an entertainment standpoint, or do you like it as this is what you define as good racing? That's where you have to draw the line. And some people, unfortunately, cannot draw that line. Is it entertaining? Absolutely. I'll give you that point every day. But if you consider the wall ride, what happened at the Roval this past weekend, okay, Austin Dillon and Joey Logano. If you consider any of that racing, I think you really need to sit down and look at what is racing and what isn't racing. Because we really shouldn't have to have different definitions for racing. We should be able to define entertainment versus racing. Entertainment, racing. But there's some people that can't do it. And that's concerning in a way. It really is. But do you enjoy it from an entertainment standpoint, or do you consider that racing in your perspective?
I enjoy it from an entertainment standpoint. I don't think it's good racing per se. Like like granted, like some tracks we might have like decent racing, good battles, like Kansas a couple weeks ago. Um, but from an entertainment perspective, yes, I do like it, because it creates stories like what we're talking about, and the points battles and stuff like that. I will say this. I see you, Ryan. I see you. Um, I will say this. I've said it on here before. I do not like the win and you're in format. To me, it should be based off consistency throughout the regular season on who makes the playoffs. And I do not like the win and advance, because that gives certain teams who, like certain playoff teams who may win a playoff race to advance to the next round, a week or two to prepare for the upcoming round. So, like, let's say, for instance, like last year at Las Vegas, Joey Logano barely made it in after the Roval because of the whole Alex Bowman disqualification. He goes out and wins Vegas, and now he's got 2 weeks to prepare for Phoenix. And guess what? He goes out and wins the championship. I don't like the automatic bye to the next round. I think if you win a race, you get the points and all that, but you base it on consistency to make it to the next round across all the drivers.
I'll add one more thing, and I'm done because I know I've yapped a lot on the subject. If NASCAR really has a rooted problem with instances such as going back to Martinsville 2015, Kenseth and Logano, Richmond, Austin Dillon, Joey Logano. There's a common denominator actually there, but no matter what, if you have a deeply rooted problem, you really don't like that, and you're going to penalize drivers for it, go ahead and do it. I'm all for it. Here's where I have a problem. Do not market the hell out of stuff like this. Do not. You If you have a problem with it and you're going to stand on, we are racing, we are not a demolition derby, we are not WWE. Perfect. Don't sell tickets based on things that have happened like this. That is terrible marketing. It gives the sport a terrible look, in my opinion. And you don't market yourself as racing, you market yourself as WWE. That's what you do.
Yep.
So that's all I got to say.
All right. Ryan, you were waiting patiently to add on, so please do.
Yeah, well, there were a couple of things because obviously there was a lot said there, but I feel like as one of the bigger Roval supporters, of which there are very few, um, but I can make the other argument though of, if let's just say that we were in a regular points format or whatever, and this race were to happen, I think there's still the chance that the contact that led to AJ Allmendinger going around still happens, and that's a spin inside the top 10 and would have been a much bigger storyline, and obviously wouldn't have been overshadowed by the wreck in the back, because those two wouldn't have crashed further back, causing another car to go backwards across the line. So I think that the AJ Allmendinger thing, and like, yeah, will Byron or someone else be able to pass him and get that one extra point needed to try and close the gap to, say, Bell or Larson for the championship? So, I mean, obviously, it's all of this is a hypothetical dream world scenario, but I think that there is still definitely a situation in which the Roval would be a very interesting race in a full season championship format. But like you guys, I'm not the biggest fan. I'm pretty sick and tired of the, especially the winning you're in, after guys like Burton have been able to get their winning in, and again, it's no hate on the drivers. I mean, they're just driving to the format. Same thing with like Josh Berry, who was middle of the pack all year long, but because he got that one win early in the year, he was locked into the playoffs, or even to a lesser degree, although obviously he won multiple races. Trackhouse bringing in SVG specifically because of winning you're in. All he needed to do was win one road course race, and he gets that car automatically into the top 16 in points.
Yep.
So, but yeah, when it comes to the Roval on a larger scale, though, I feel like it does produce interesting racing. I mean, I've been there in person for a Roval race. Yeah, it was a great race in person to see. And honestly, on TV, I feel like it puts on enough of a show without the playoff drama that, I mean, obviously this year with SVG dominating by 15 seconds, yeah, maybe not so much, but past Roval races, I feel like have been actually fairly good. Have been fairly good racing, um, regardless of the points battle.
Yep. JP, what about you? Okay. I think JP may have fell asleep on us. All right. Well, that will lead me into my next question. You guys talked about it a minute ago. Should this race be on the oval? Ryan shaking his head over there.
Nope. 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 Nope.
All right. What about you, Eli?
Well, I want to know Ryan's reasoning for it. I would love to give Ryan a minute to talk, give me his reasons, because him shaking his head is just over here making me mad. And that ain't a good combo.
Well, I mean, first and foremost, and this is something I've said about quite a few tracks. I mean, I'm an advocate for I feel like there's very few tracks on the schedule that need to have two dates on the same layout. And if the Roval is saying, I actually kind of like the Roval because it gives a different vibe and allows the Coke 600 to have something that is unique to it. Yeah, versus the um yeah, versus the situation where having because we had the oval race in the fall for years, and it was fairly stale and boring, just like all the other 500-mile-and-a-half races on the schedule. So I would rather see Chicagoland get us a secure spot before we start looking at adding a second Charlotte Oval race. I think there are just plenty of other mile and a halves to add on there before we start looking at adding a second Charlotte Oval date. Now, if you want to have more racing on the Oval, bring back the All Star race to the Charlotte Oval. I feel like that would be a whole lot of fun. But but for the second point state, I like having something that is different, that is unique to it, and allows NASCAR to still visit their home city of Charlotte more times throughout the year. So those are some of my biggest arguments for the for the Roval.
Eli?
Okay, so I disagree with the fact that it would shine away a little bit from the Coke 600. I mean, there are just certain races that are on the schedule every year that you could go to them 5 other times, and that vibe will not be the same until you go to the actual race. Like, you could have 5 Charlotte races on the oval and one Coke 600. And that Coke 600 vibe is going to be so much different. It's a long weekend. The partying does not quit. I don't see how they do it down there. It's crazy. It's America, beer, and cars going fast. And it's a long race. Um, I think though, in all seriousness, though, what you need to look at if you're going to make that switch from oval to roval, roval to oval, however you want to look at it. And it doesn't have to be 500 miles. I would be okay with an oval race that's 400, like Texas. They shortened Texas. That turned out good, actually. Um, it, for me, if I was the one making the decision, and thank God I'm not, because I would do some irrational things. You can go ahead and shake your head to that, Ryan. Um, it's can you put butts in seats? And I'm not sold you could, because that is a hard weekend to sell. It is. Um, especially with the other races though that are around it. It's closer to Talladega, not distance wise, just the timing. People love to go to Talladega. It's not too far after Bristol. People love to go to Bristol, which I'm really not for sure why, to be honest, other than just for the party. The racing's not great. This year was great actually, but it's just could you
I
put
think
butts in
Bristol has been
seats?
pretty good in the last several years. I mean, obviously, 2024 was a particular nightmare, but
Well,
I feel like Bristol overall is pretty good.
the spring was, the fall was not.
The fall sucked.
I'm aware. I was there. And yeah, the fall was not great.
It's just, can you put butts in seats? And that's a hard date to sell. It is. Um, if you can't put butts in seats, then leave it the Roval. I mean, from a marketing standpoint, I would still rather it be the oval. I don't like cars going right. I'm not big on that. But
Well,
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, considering how good the mile and a halfs are with this car, I think you probably could put butts in seats for the oval in the fall, especially with it being cooler, it being at night. If they brought maybe a tire package that, tires could wear out kind of like it does during the 600. I mean, I think you have the potential to make a fantastic freaking race.
What Okay, then what do you think the longevity of that would be then? I definitely think if you bring back the oval for the first year, you will sell much better than the Roval, obviously. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's
But
I
will it
look at
run its course
Wilkesboro.
in 3 years?
Exactly. Like I look at Wilkesboro. The first year it came back, almost near impossible to get tickets. I tried everything to get tickets that first year. Could not get tickets. Granted, it was sold out this year. There were butts and seats, but Wilkesboro tickets were like candy. Everybody was selling Wilkesboro tickets. Vendors were selling them. Marketers were selling. I mean, they were not hard to get a hold of. So I just don't know how long it would last, if that makes sense.
Well, and that's another thing that annoys me with the reaction I've seen on social media from the anti-Roval crowd is the amount of people taking pictures of the crowd at the in the grandstand sections at the Roval versus the grandstand section from the 600 earlier this year, and it's like, huh, holiday weekend at the start of summer versus fall race really after say an October race after summer's ended, so a lot of people who can travel during the summer but can't during the rest of the year. Not to mention a road course has a lot more vantage points to camp out in to try and get better views of the infield versus only looking at the grandstand seating section, which because it's the same thing with Indianapolis and the for the Indy cars. Like, yeah, the grandstand crowd looks terrible on for the Indy road course because a lot of people camp out in and around the facility.
Well, too, though, I
So,
mean, when it comes to selling Coke 600, though, other than it just being a crown jewel race, I do get that. Yes, obviously. It's just so many people, like, yes, that's on their agenda, but then they want to go to the race shops. They want to go to Lake Norman. They really like Lake Norman. I do like Lake Norman. I have participated in some Lake Norman, but there's just so much that carries on that weekend, and it's really not about the Coke 600. It's about those guys that are no longer with us anymore. But there's just such a vibe to that race you can't break. And I think that's why a lot of people do go down that weekend compared to the Roval. Because the Roval is much more family oriented. I know, Ryan, you've been to both. Is the
Well,
Roval not much more family oriented than the Coke 600?
sorry, I had it on mute. Yeah, I mean, I went to both the 600 and the Roval in the same year, which obviously my Coke 600 experience was probably different than most people's because of the fact that that was the year that that Sunday got completely washed out. So we ended up Saturday too. So we had to have everything on Monday. So it was definitely a different and more spaced out crowd than it probably otherwise would have been. So, but yeah, I will say with it not being anywhere near as tightly packed because like that's the thing when you have a tightly packed crowd at almost any NASCAR venue is that it will be the chances of you being next to someone who maybe isn't as considerate to the fact that, hey, look, there's an 8-year-old sitting next to you. Maybe watch the language or don't smoke as heavily right in their face or right next to an 8-year-old versus at a track like even at New Hampshire where there was room to spread out if there's someone who is if you're trying to find somewhere to watch the race as a family that's yeah, away from some of the guys who are either overly drunk or slightly problematic. It's like, okay, it's not a big enough deal to call security over, but you still don't necessarily need it right next to your kids. So,
Yep.
and that's just kind of the difference between a packed house at a NASCAR venue and a venue that has room to spread out.
Yep. But to add on to what you were saying, Eli, to me, I think the difference between the Coke 600 and the Roval is the Coke 600 is Memorial Day weekend.
Correct.
People get, an extra day off of work for Memorial Day. It's also the start of summer break for a lot of school districts around the country. And three, it is probably, in my opinion, probably the biggest showing of military appreciation for any sporting event in the United States at any time of the year.
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean the Coke 600 is really cool. I would love to go back there for another Coke 600 one day, but yeah, I mean the Coke 600 will always be special. There is no doubt about that. Yeah, but again, just kind of to my point of when it comes to the on track racing product specifically, if you have two races at the same venue that are putting on a very similar show, I mean, people said the same thing about Kansas for years. Is like, well, or even looking to back when Dover used to have Dover or Pocono had two race. Yeah, it was Pocono that had two races, one in June and one in July, and it's like, okay, two races at the same track that put on a very similar type of show. It's gonna be hard to sell tickets to the same type of race, yeah, twice in one year. And the fact that the Roval puts on a significantly different product from the Oval makes it a lot easier to sell tickets to both events to the same person, for example.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. If you're going to both Pocono races a month apart and you're making long distance travel to go to this back then, you should have seeked help a long time ago.
Well, I'm talking about even like Pennsylvania residents who are nearby, even
They should
because
have
if you,
went in their backyard and dug a little Pocono. They should took that shovel and just made a triangle and put RC cars on it. That is insane. I forgot about that.
yeah, but I was just using those as as examples of when you have two races that are very similar to each other in the same year.
No, I get your point. I was just yapping. I was
Yeah,
hating on the Pennsylvanians there. I love y'all though. Don't
yeah.
take
I
that to
mean,
heart,
again, I mean,
guys.
it's the same thing. Like, it's the same reason why as much as I'm not necessarily the biggest fan that my New Hampshire Motor Speedway lost a date, I can understand because yeah, it is somewhat hard to sell two races in New Hampshire because they are going to be very similar. Although the fall date is way better than a summer date.
All right. Well, we're gonna move on um, to our green flags and black flags segment. And for our new listeners, green flags is something during the race weekend that we liked, and black flags is something that we did not like. So we will kick it off with Ryan. You're still muted, Ryan.
There we go. Yeah, I was tapping the button and it wasn't unmuting. So for green flag on the weekend, I'm gonna say for green flag on the weekend, I mean, I think it's hard not to give it to him. I'll give it to SVG for another dominating performance, which again leaves me kind of baffled as to how he looked so pedestrian at Circuit of the Americas. Ran anywhere between fourth and seventh almost the entire race at Coda. Didn't lead much, if any, of the race. yeah, at Circuit of the Americas, and then flipped the switch and just crushed it at every other yeah road course. With I think the closest margin of victory he had was Sonoma, which was still a 1.5 second and a half gap to second place. Every other one though was double digit seconds between himself and second place. So just a another road course win to cap off an incredible rookie season by probably the oldest NASCAR rookie of the year in a pretty long while with SVG. And then for my black flag, I'm gonna go ahead and give it to something we haven't really talked a whole lot about, which was the potential race slash playoff manipulation with on the radios that we hadn't talked about much when it came to guys like Alex Bowman being told to, hey, save your tires on the final lap when he was coming up to potentially, yeah, yeah, battle Logano or other drivers being told, because there were multiple drivers on the final like, lap or two as they were coming up to some of these drivers like. No, sorry. I think it was Bowman was coming up on Chastain, and he was told to save your tires. Or Cole Custer was the one coming up on Logano and was like, hey, Custer, just be gentle with him.
Yeah.
And it's like, didn't we just do this a year ago?
Well, to add on to that before Eli goes, um, Door Bumper Clear talked about this, and Freddie Kraft, who is a spotter for Bubba Wallace, he said that they are not allowed to talk about the point situation on the radio anymore. He said that during the Xfinity Series race on Saturday, a certain driver asked his spotter what the point situation was, and he said that all the spotter did was read the standings as they ran. And he received a warning from NASCAR and said that if he said anything about the point situation again, he was going to be ejected from the facility in the middle of the race.
So I'm kind of curious on that. So are you not allowed to ask about other drivers' perspectives, or if you are a playoff driver, are you allowed to ask like, "Hey, do we need to gain 2 spots?" Like if
If
I'm Ross Chastain in that situation, I want my team telling me, "Do I need to go and pass Denny Hamlin or not?"
I believe it has to do with like maybe people who are already advanced to the next round or maybe not in the playoffs. If they ask about the point situation, the NASCAR could see that as race manipulation and a suspension and or fine could come down.
Yeah, because because you mentioned Freddie Kraft is Bubba Wallace's spotter. So would Bubba Wallace be able to get an update on his own playoff standings? Although I think for all intents and purposes, he was in a must-win anyway,
Yeah.
and there weren't really any Toyotas near the cut line anyway. So
Yeah.
uh,
Eli, what are yours, bud?
My green flag would probably have to be the TV broadcast. They did a great job, I thought. Anyway, this past weekend, I didn't have any gripes. Unlike with Fox, I mean, with Fox, I'll turn on the race, and there's times I just have to mute the TV. I have to say, Alexa, mute the TV. I didn't have to do that this weekend, and that I appreciate that. I didn't really watch the truck race. I'm assuming the truck race was on Fox,
FS1.
so I dodged a bullet there. Um, so I guess that's my green flag. Um, what's the other one? Black flag?
yeah, something
Okay,
you
black
didn't
flag.
like.
Yeah, okay, some I didn't like. Yeah, that's easy. I say it every year.
There's plenty of those, I'm sure.
I say it every year, and I don't mean anything by it. Breast cancer sucks. I don't mean anything bad by this. I hate though. I do not. I strongly dislike the pink window nets. Do a pink like, they have the like the playoff banner. Okay, switch them from yellow to pink. I don't like these neon pink things though, because it confuses my brain for some reason. I mean, I don't know. I see the Bush Light car going around, and I'm like, okay, now it's pink, and it confuses the ever loving crap out of me. I don't know. I don't like the pink window nets. Find another way to incorporate it, but please, for the love of
I
God.
prefer the pink window nets to what they used to do with like remember back when Ryan Newman would run like the bright fluorescent pink number on his number 6 car. I
Yes,
mean,
I do.
I'd rather the window net, which is a minor part of the car, compared to the number that will get printed on the die cast in that way.
Well, listen, I'm fine if
I mean,
they want to
especially as
keep the
someone who
window
collects
nets
the die
pink.
casts.
That's fine. But they don't gotta be bright pink, okay? They don't gotta. I mean, I think it did damage to my eyes, boys. They were bright. I mean, it was doing some stuff with the TV. I don't know, but we have got to tone that down a little bit. And I know they ain't that poor. It, ain't- I mean, it. I mean, I know these teams struggle with money, hence the lawsuit. At the same time, get on the Photoshop and take it from hot, bright, extremely eye disoriented pink, whatever shade that is, and just do pink. There's a difference. So that's fine.
All
Yeah,
right.
I mean, I think they definitely could do a more muted tone to the pink because, like, even the breast cancer awareness ribbon, I feel like, is a more kind of muted pink than the fluorescent pink that we see, like, yeah, athletes wearing pink socks for like the NFL games and stuff.
Yeah. So my green flag goes to Christopher Bell and Kyle Larson for they granted there at the end SVG did win by 15 seconds, but at points during the race they did make it kind of hard for SVG to actually lead that race. Um, and I don't know if you guys noticed, but SVG was probably about a half a lap away from blowing a right rear tire and potentially handing the win over to one of those two drivers. Um, but props to them. I think they're starting to figure it out. Granted, Kyle Larson is the defending winner or was the defending winner of this race coming in. Um, so that's who my green flag goes to. My black flag, I'm torn, but I think I'm gonna give my black flag to Carson Hocevar. That dude hit everything except the pace car on Sunday. He made contact with Kyle Busch on lap one,
They
sent
killed us.
Kyle Busch into the wall before the race even started. Hardly. He cooked it into the chicane and took out Cindric. Um, he just had a really really bad day. But we are going to trans
And say, have I
what
seen signs of life from JP?
a little bit. But we're going to go into our next segment. It is a new segment that we introduced last week, and that segment is now titled Eli's Bets of the Week. Now, they are racing at Vegas this week, which, as we know, is the betting capital of the world. So, Eli, what bets do you have for us going into Las Vegas?
All right. So when we look at the stats here in our odds, Kyle Larson is the favorite at plus 500, and our not so favorited driver, aka the bottom, at plus 100,000, which is Catherine Legge.
Leg.
Do not. Okay, I don't know how you say her name. Don't put money on her though. Regardless, looking at your top five, you got Larson plus 500, Seabell plus 550, Hamlin plus 600, Blaney plus 800, Byron plus 900. Those are great picks in my opinion. But here's the three I'm going to tell you to keep an eye out for. Maybe put some financial, some cheese on the
It,
line, if you will.
and say, if
But
you are going to bet, do it responsibly. Just quick PSA.
yes, do not put your whole paycheck on it. I don't know who in God's green earth would do that. Definitely not me last year at Watkins Glen. Anyways, I think, I mean, you can take the low hanging fruit. Don't get me wrong. Here's my three, though. For the safer bet, take Logano. It's plus 1,000. He qualified second there last year. I'm not sure where he finished. I did not think to look at it, but
He
when we
won the race to lock himself into Phoenix.
no, I'm looking at the spring of this year.
Oh, spring of this year. Sorry, I thought you were looking at
No,
last
I'm
year's
being a big
fall
dummy.
race.
Logano's solid there, and I just see a lot of value in plus 1,000. I would feel confident putting a little bit of money in that. I would. For my second one, it's kind of, you're getting risky with it. And I like risk. It's Chase Briscoe, plus 1,100. I don't like it as much as I do Logano, but Briscoe can put down a lap. I don't know if he can see the checkered flag, but if you're betting on qualifying, easily put him in the top 5. 100%. Now, for the risky one, this is, I wouldn't wager a whole lot, and I'm going to get called crazy for this one, but he qualified 4th in the spring. We're probably going to blow a motor on lap 5, but that's Kyle Busch. His luck's got to turn around eventually. I don't know when. I'm starting to think our luck may be the tweet from RCR saying Kyle Busch is retiring. That would be pretty good, but qualified 4th. He didn't finish good. That's why it's risky. I think he has a shot at it. That's coming from a Kyle Busch
Yeah,
fan.
35 laps off the
Yeah,
pace is where
okay.
he was this spring.
Yeah, we did not do good. So, does anybody have any questions on betting odds where maybe a certain driver is, anything like that? I have everything pulled up in front of me.
Well, before we go into that, Xfinity is also racing this weekend. Do you have the betting odds for the Xfinity guys?
So, in Virginia, I cannot bet on Xfinity or Truck. It is only Cup. Why? I don't know. But FanDuel will not let me see the odds. It says that I'm not in a valid location.
Oh, wow.
However, on the next podcast we do, I will go to Tennessee temporarily and screenshot the odds. And I will place a bet on the Tennessee side. That's not illegal, folks. If you are in a
The fact
state,
that you can
you can
walk
bet on it.
for the fact that you live close enough that you can walk from one state to another.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, Bristol, if he lives
Oh,
near
I know.
Bristol, it's right there on the state line.
And say, when I was down there with Eli last year, we watched someone get thrown out of a bar on one side of the border, and we were standing in a different state entirely.
We did, and that wasn't me. It wasn't me that done it.
No, but we did have to stop you from going to try and get to join in on the fight.
Okay, that's. Do we have an edit feature, boys? I hope we got an edit feature. That's not a good story. That's a bad story.
Okay, so before we go to the next thing, let me ask you this. So looking at the playoffs and the 8 drivers that remain, you got Hamlin, Blaney, Larson, and Byron above the cut line, and it's only separated by the cut line is separated by 8 points. And then below the cut line, you have Christopher Bell, Chase Elliott, Briscoe, and Logano. Logano being the lowest at minus 24. What are man, I honestly shouldn't even be asking this because I cannot bet here in Georgia, but what are Chase Elliott's odds?
That's a great question. Chase Elliott is at plus 1,100 also. Same boat as Briscoe.
Okay.
I would
His
Because
take
top three
Elliott over
finish.
Briscoe at the same odds.
His
What about
hang on.
Byron?
Byron? Let's look at Byron.
Yeah, I feel like you said
Plus
Byron, but I
900.
missed it.
Plus
Plus 500.
900. A
Okay.
top 3 finish is plus 260.
Yeah,
okay.
because
All right.
Byron's one I've got my eye on for this week.
Okay. Now let me ask you this. 2 non-playoff drivers. Bubba Wallace and Alex Bowman.
Alex
Wonder
Bowman
what you
is
want
at
to know about Alex Bowman.
plus 3,000. A top 3 finish is at plus 850. Bubba Wallace is at plus 2,500, plus 700 for a top 3 finish.
Okay. All right. Ryan, you got any more?
No, those were the ones I was kind of curious in.
Okay. Well, thank you, Eli, for that. Glad you could be on to give us those betting odds. And again, if you are in a state in the United States that you can bet, please bet responsibly. Um, and hope you guys win some money. But speaking of Las Vegas, they are racing in Las Vegas this weekend. And this is where we kind of started the Wheel of Destiny last year. We started it at the Spring Vegas race, if I'm not mistaken, in 2024. We just put our names on a randomized wheel and spun it, and our names landed on, or whoever the name it landed on, we picked the driver. So, JP, are you awake and back with us?
We actually did it slightly differently when we first did the Wheel of Destiny. You had a
Yes,
oh,
did I fall
JP is with
asleep?
the land of the living.
Yes, you did fall asleep. You missed half the show, bud.
but
Ah,
yeah, when we first did the Wheel of Destiny, you had us put the drivers on a wheel and we spun and assigned drivers that way rather than
yeah,
allowing us to
I'm
actually
back
pick our
with.
drivers.
Oh, okay.
I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. I'm
Which
alive.
I don't think he's back, boys.
which made it feel very weird trying to root for a driver that we didn't actually pick or have any actual confidence in going in.
Yep. Well,
But the system's gotten a lot better since then.
yeah, well, ever since then, we've stuck with the Wheel of Destiny. So I do have our names on the wheel here. And again, Eli, you can make a fun pick. You did confirm it the other night in the chat that you will be joining Race Picks next season. So uh, hope to have a win for you next year, or maybe even this weekend. Who knows? But I'm going to spin the wheel, and it will land on first. Ooh, Mr. JP gets the first pick.
Didn't he have first pick last week too?
No, that was me.
And how did he get SVG last week then if you had first pick?
Because I didn't take the low hanging fruit.
Weren't you the one earlier that said everybody saw the SVG win coming?
Yes, yes, and I did not take the low hanging fruit. And remember, I put in the chat that I regretted it too.
Oh, yeah,
Any-
I know. I was just calling you out on it.
Anyways,
All
JP,
right.
who's your pick, bud?
JP is going with Mr. Kyle Lawson.
Shock and surprise.
All right. Next pick goes to me. I am going to take. I regretted it last week. I am taking the low hanging fruit this week. Give me Joey Logano. Next pick will go to Ryan.
All right. Well, he was third 2 weeks ago. The last time we were on a mile and a half, he was second last week at the. Was he second or was he third? He might have been third this past weekend at the Roval as well. But off of back-to-back third place finishes, I'm going to go ahead and I will take Christopher Bell.
All right. And last pick, just for fun, will go to Mr. Eli.
I could take the low hanging fruit, or I could take the one that I know really want him to win. Probably won't win. Um, I guess I'll take the low hanging fruit. Give me Ryan Blaney.
All right. As always, I will get the rest of the picks later on this week. I'm hoping to do it by tomorrow night or Friday afternoon. But before we close the show out, we do have a little bit of trivia.
Jamie's Trivia featuring
Jamie.
No Jamie.
Yep, Jamie is not here tonight, so I will be covering trivia. I have to double check my notes here. And I have a trivia question line up. Let's see here. Oh, hold on.
Oh, so wait a minute. That means
Hold on.
because me and Ryan.
I'm just double checking my notes. Okay. All right. So tonight's trivia question, and for those of you who are just now joining us, I will ask a trivia question in place of Jamie. And if Ryan or JP get it correct, they get a bonus point added to their race picks total. If they get it wrong, I get the bonus point. So, my question for you guys tonight: Las Vegas Motor Speedway had their inaugural race in 1998. How many drivers since 1998 has won their first ever Cup Series race at Las Vegas? Starting with Ryan.
All right. Well, hopefully you remember to update the number because obviously we saw one already this year get his first career win there with Josh Berry. Let's see, because it's been a little over 20 years. Let's go ahead and say, I'll say 8.
Okay. JP?
I will go with 10.
Okay.
I thought I was too high, so clearly JP is higher than I am. But
Eli, you want to make a guess?
Absolutely. Um, 3.
yeah, I was gonna say I think it's gonna be much lower. I think.
Okay, so we have 3, 8, and 10. Well, I have to say that all 3 of you are incorrect.
All right.
The number of drivers that has earned their first ever Cup Series win at Las Vegas has been 1. And
Oh, was it just
and that
Barry?
was Josh Berry this year.
Wow.
So I get the bonus point and take the second place point spot over JP. Me and JP are currently tied in points behind Jamie, so I will take sole possession of second place. But with that, that is going to close out our show tonight. As always, a huge thank you to all of our sponsors: Fubo TV, Fanatics, Smack and Sunflower Seeds, Century PC, Sleeves, Bulletproof Coffee, and Circle B Diecast. Don't forget promo code LAPDOWN at checkout for $5 off. And the Alkali Project. I don't want to forget them. But until next time, I am Greg, and for Ryan, Eli, and JP, this has been the Lapdown, and we will see you guys right after Las Vegas.